From the latest on Caribbean cruises to kosher safaris, pilgrimages to Jewish Eastern Europe, and award-winning wines and international cuisine in sun-drenched Tel Aviv. Sit back and enjoy the trip with the travel edition of the Jerusalem Post podcast.
It's very dark. Are we in a coal mine?
No, but we will be.
Really?
Tomorrow morning.
What's your pet hate, David?
Heights.
What's my pet hate?
Squashy, dark places. Steps.
So do you know what we need to do in the next few minutes?
Go somewhere high, go somewhere steppy.
Sounds like a plan.
That's the podcast.
Good night.
We are travelling in the back of a lovely van, and we're headed into the region known as Upper Silesia, or as they call it in Polish, Górna Śląska.
That's brilliant.
If I remembered rightly.
Someone in the front of the vehicle will correct you, as they normally do when we try and speak Polish.
I've been practising for the last 10 minutes. I've been saying it over and over in my head. I've probably got it completely wrong.
I think you would have been better if you said Gornished. Gornished meant Gornished.
What we're going to be doing over the next half an hour or so is bringing you both the general tourist sights and smells and tastes from this region, but also going to be taking an in-depth look at the Jewish story of Upper Silesia.
Silesia is potentially a slightly lesser visited region.
Mm-hmm.
It sits an hour from Krakow and therefore is very accessible, but it's a chance to go out and see somewhere slightly different, go off the regular beaten track.
Off the piste.
Oh yeah, we're going up the piste.
It's a region that borders Czechia, the Czech Republic. We will probably take a little peek at that border. As Mark says, it's less visited, and that, for people who are looking for something that isn't overly touristed, is a real pull in 2024.
Katowice will be our base for the next few days, and it's very different from nearly every Polish city and town we've visited. It's a much more modern city. It wasn't built in the time of the Magdeburg laws. It's going to be a new experience for us.
So we're headed on the main highway between those two cities, between Krakow and Katowice. Whilst we're heading in that direction, why don't you give the listeners our regular quiz question, Mark?
Katowice had a very different name in the early 1950s when it was part of what was known as the Warsaw Pact, the group of countries in Eastern Europe that were aligned with the Soviet Union. Can you tell us what that name is?
The answer from Mark at the end of the pod.
Discover the future with Inside Israeli Innovation. I'm Eve Young from the Jerusalem Post, bringing you exclusive insights from Israel's top innovators. Each week, we dive into the latest trends in tech, business, and beyond with interviews from the brightest minds in the industry. Whether it's cutting-edge startups or revolutionary tech breakthroughs, Inside Israeli Innovation is your front row seat to the startup nation. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform and stay ahead of the curve. Inside Israeli Innovation, where innovation meets inspiration.
David?
Yes, sir.
What's this big towery thing in front of us?
We're not going up for a change, we're going down.
Going underground.
320 metres, which is over 1,000 feet.
Or the Eiffel Tower, pretty much.
We're going to be descending at a slower rate than the original people who for the last 150 years or so were going up and down in this shaft and another shaft just across the way. There were two shafts at the Guido coal mine to allow for ventilation and of course for speed, to allow workers to go in and out and also to bring up the black gold.
The Guido coal mine is in Zabrze in the Katowice region, or the Silesia region to be exactly precise, or to be even more precise, Upper Silesia. Come and join us on our journey down underground.
It's not good.
It's gone very dark.
There are 5 of us descending in the shaft. You probably didn't hear, but one of the other people descending with us just said, "Oh my God," because we're going pretty fast, but apparently it feels really fast. We're going down at 4 meters per second, which is about 14 feet per second, but when the miners worked here, they went down 4 times quicker. You can imagine what that does to your ears before you start a day's work.
We're wobbling a little bit as the elevator is going down. It looks reasonably quickly. There's a light on the outside, although I think that's you videoing. I think without that light we'd probably be in total darkness. This is a bit of a journey.
The last time we were in Poland, went to the Wieliczka mine, which is a salt mine and is world famous, but the real bedrock, if you'll forgive the pun, of mining in Poland, much in the same way, I grew up in northern England, much as the Industrial Revolution was based on it, is coal.
David is from Manchester. Manchester is a very good parallel. You have a large conurbation of 1.7 million people, 2 million people, and in the middle of it all is industry, mining, metallurgy, textiles, and here in Upper Silesia it's very, very similar. We are slowing down. Light at the end of the tunnel. Breathe in. Ladies first. You can take your earplugs out now. That was not David singing.
What we're seeing in this mine, it's much more raw, it's much more untouched, untouristy than our experience in the salt mine on the other side of Krakow. You're really getting a feeling here of how miners worked. Occasionally they've put in a couple of dummies so you can see the dress of the people and so on, but really you're seeing the equipment. Above our heads there are iron supports to ensure the safety. We've seen also spruce trees that were used to support the various parts of the mine where people were digging. And the reason that they used spruce, according to our guide, was because as opposed to oak, the spruce, if there were problems up above, if there was a fear of a collapse, the spruce would start to crack and would eventually smash to the floor. And so it was used as something that would indicate to the miners that if it was safe to carry on working.
Without giving too much away of what's under here, because there's plenty of fun and surprises, there's also a model canary, the classic canary in the coal mine, that also would be an indicator to get out. If the canary stopped tweeting and breathing and collapsed in its cage, it was a sign that the gas wasn't right in the area and you should run as quickly as you could.
There are video screens at various points, and one of the videos shows modern production vis-a-vis the older production. And what is phenomenal is that the work that would be done by hundreds of miners who were literally next to each other with their hammers and pickaxes hammering away is now done in the 21st century by somewhere between 8 and 12 people, along with, of course, huge amounts of machinery.
About halfway through the mine tour, there's a special treat for those of you that can't be bothered to walk the other half. There is a suspended railway.
In days gone by, the miners used to find all sorts of shortcuts to get through the mine, especially at the end of their shift when they wanted to go home. And even though it was illegal, they would jump on the conveyor belts that were used for the coal. Eventually, the company built a conveyor belt just for the miners, but these days it's something completely different.
I think at one point they had a small railway there, and like with the coal, the miners could hop on what was the equivalent of a small train. But in later years, they put the rail above the mine, and we're hanging down from that rail at the moment and are about to go the next 200 meters, swinging from side to side a bit. You're arriving at platform 2. Again.
Mark, this one looks a bit like a car wash.
It's part car wash and part one of those things that shaves kebabs. When you're trying to get meat off a kebab and you put the shaver next to it, it all drops off. This is doing the same with coal up against a long wall.
So I'm just thinking to myself, can you imagine putting your car or even yourself through this?
My biggest worry is obviously what's above me. But here, unlike through the mine where we've had metal supports and wooden supports, we've now got ultra-modern hydraulic supports. This is just an example, and there are 12 supports, but there could be a column of as many as 150 supports.
And what this mine is trying to do is to take you through the history. So you start off by descending the way the miners would have descended, then you see how mining was carried out 150, 200 years ago. Mining here started right at the end of the 18th century, and what they're doing is bringing you all the way up into the modern era before this mine ceased to operate at the end of the 20th century.
As Matthias, our guide, said, in the older methods of mining, you would hear the hammering and the pick of people taking small pieces of coal off the wall. You'd hear the canary. Now, all you just hear is machinery, the machinery of the railway, the machinery of the Alpina digging a hole through the coal, and this, the long wall shearer, just taking tons and tons of coal in seconds off of a seam, putting it onto a conveyor belt and sending it to the top. Having walked for an hour and a half around the coal mine, we've come to the heart of Polish coal mining, the most important historical site in this coal mine. This is Europe's deepest pub. It is 320 meters underground, and a chance for us to sit and talk with our guide, Mateusz Nowaczyński.
I was so impressed that you looked at his name once and then you didn't need to look at it again as you said it. That was really good.
This is because the beer is yet to be served.
So you're still sober. First of all, thank you for an amazing tour. How long have you been guiding here?
I'm a tour guide for 5 years.
Why do this? In the old days, poorer people didn't really have a choice. They had to go down the coal mine because that was the industry that men and boys worked in. But why are you underground? What is it that excites you about this?
I finished history, so I was looking some kind of job that I wanted to do, so I decided to hire here. And moreover, it's quite uncommon because my father was short time was a miner, and I think nowadays mines are going to close, so here is some kind of option to feel those mining and Upper Silesian traditions, to be here and to feel and look like it was in a mine.
How many visitors come to this mine? Is it just for tours, or can the mine be used for events, meetings? Are there other things that go on at this mine?
Every year we noticed much tourists are visiting. We are more popular. When we are talking in general, in tourists or in visiting even the pub or being on a concert underground, in general, our Guido mine and Queen Louise edit, we have visitors more than 300,000 of tourists per year.
That's a lot of people, especially when you've got such a small number of people who can come down the elevator in the shaft at one time. So just talk a little bit about the events that you have here.
We have many cultural events like concerts, like festivals. So in one time can having fun underground, 500 people in one time.
Why is the mine called Guido?
This is the name of the owner, Guido Henkel for Donnersmarck. So he was very rich and wealthy person. Also, he decided to open his private mine.
If Guido was here today, what would he think of the way the mine has been repurposed so it has become a tourist attraction?
I think he will be very shocked and I think impressed if he see what heritage we preserved for him. And it's fun fact because Guido Henkel von Donnersmarck opened his mine and very quickly realized that the coal was not enough as he expected. So after 20 years he decided to sell the mine. So he was thinking that Guido will not bringing many profits as he wanted.
Which is why he opened a pub.
Maybe, perhaps, sell the beer.
We want to talk to you a lot more, but our alcohol has arrived on the table. And as regular listeners to our podcast know, Mark and I don't do anything once alcohol arrives. So just a final question for now. If anybody wants to visit or learn more about this mine, how can they do so? Is there a website? What's the best way to learn more?
Yes, better to make a reservation because you are going underground with a guide, and you also, if you are abroad, it's important for you to choose the language. Mostly we are popular in guiding in English and in German as well. So better is to find the tickets on our website podziemnaprzygoda.pl.
Oh my gosh, I'm just wondering if people look up Guido Mine, if they'll find it that way as well.
If you find the Guido Mine or Kopalnia Guido, you can, I think, also make a links to follows you to the website.
So just one more time, say the name of the website, because I'm not going to try.
podziemnaprzygoda.pl.
Mateusz Nowaczynski, thank you very much. Before we sign off,
Absolutely. Mark puts his microphone in between us as we clink our glasses. L'chaim, bottoms up. And Nostrovia.
Nostrovia.
Ooh, beer at lunchtime. Is myth like what someone is before they become a Mrs.?
Have we just come back from a winery and we're a little bit sicker?
This is the most bizarre tourist attraction in Israel, I reckon.
I'm going for a steak. Let's hope it will love me tender.
A juniper bush! A juniper bush!
And he's buried here and in Jerusalem, possibly. There's a bird behind me. I need to run, but I've got no legs.
You're listening to the Jerusalem Post podcast travel edition with Mark Gordon and David Harris.
Mark, as we were driving into Gliwice, a new city for us, we came down a street with low-rise buildings, a mix, nothing too fancy, trees in the middle.
a branch of Żabka.
A branch of Żabka, which means frog. It's the local supermarket that we see everywhere. And off to the right was this gorgeous red brick building. And Mark, I looked at you and I said, is that a synagogue? And you looked at me and said, there's no way that that could be a synagogue. That has to be a church.
Yeah.
The truth is, we were both wrong, but you were more wrong than me.
Yes, I was like, look at the towers, just the windows, that's a church. We were looking round for 2-3 minutes. We followed our guide and we are now inside the church, except that church is not a church. It's a beautiful cemetery building, Beit Tahara, the room where you have the service before the burial. It is a stunning building.
Hello, my name is Karolina Jakowenko. You were thinking, what is it? And many people are coming here and asking, is it a former synagogue or is it a church? As you said, it's none of them. We are in this beautiful, amazing, pre-war former Jewish funeral house. I have an honor to run this beautiful place as a part of a museum in Gliwice, this Upper Silesian Jews House of Remembrance.
You stand inside the building and it's in perfect condition. It's a rarity on our travels around Poland to see a building this old looking this well maintained. Who has restored this building, or has it always looked like this?
Of course not. This building is 120 years old, so it was running in good condition place till the beginning of the war, and then after everything had changed, after the Second World War, after 45, it started going into a ruin till 2000, more or less 13, when the city of Gliwice decided to renovate this place. But before that, there is still this 70-something years of history. It was still using as a funeral house by the Jewish community. And in 2007, I guess, the Jewish community decided to sell this house as a monument, as a heritage, to the city for 1 zloty. And from that time, I think the members of the government in the city hall were thinking what to do. And then in the, let's say, more or less 2012, the people from Gliwice, some of them discovered the name of the architect, and they make a huge social movement about this place and to renovate and to do something with this ruin in that time.
So now it is a museum. Is a museum the right word?
Yes, we are a part of the City Hall Museum, one of 5 amazing places here in Gliwice, and we are like a museum, so that means that we have this educational program, lectures, conference. We are trying to research the past of the Jews who were living here, and we have, of course, the heart of this place nowadays, the core exhibition about the Jews from Upper Silesia.
How do you find the balance between history, richness of community, and Holocaust and destruction?
A very hard question, of course, because there is no balance, I think. When I started to run, let's say, learning the history of Jews of Poland, not also from Upper Silesia, we are talking about German Jews history, I wanted to tell to people about the life, about this 1,000 years of life of Jews here. But in the end of the day, you have always this Holocaust. There is no balance. The Holocaust, unfortunately, is winning, and it's very hard, and you have to, I think, have everything in your head. You should be on the right places. Otherwise, you will just get crazy, I think, about what you know, what you heard, what you read, and of course, that the history is repeating.
Gliwice wasn't historically a Polish community. There is a long link to Germany, a link to Prussia, and that's part of the focus of the museum, isn't it? The German Jewish community.
That's why also this museum is unique. The story hidden and also which is showing here is so unique. We are telling about the German Jews who were living in Gliwice and other places around cities like Katowice, Beuthen, Hindenburg, Oppeln, Zult and other places, and they were German Jews. And of course we are talking also about what happened after 1945 when the border had changed and when Polish Jews came here. That's why it's so unique, and this is only one place all over the Poland nowadays which is telling the history.
We last year were in Łódź, a city with a lot of Jewish industrialists. Here in Gliwice, there's also a parallel with Jewish industrialists. I was very happy to see breweries mentioned, having just come from a pub to here. There's a famous brand name that I think people around the world will know, Nivea. Can you tell a little bit about the story of some of the people that lived here?
Because we have this, let's say, our gold under the ground, I like this word, we used to have lots of coal, and that's why this industry was developing so fast in 19th century, and it was a very important reason why Jews came here. So that's why when we are thinking or speaking about the Jewish communities from the 19th century or later from the German time, we are talking about very rich people who invest their time, their life and their possibilities also to raise the money in the industrial. Among these people are many famous families who had factories, breweries, the ceramic factories, etc. And also, as you mentioned, the most famous and the
creamiest.
Oh, thank you. Cream all over the world, Nivea cream. We are telling the beautiful legend about it, that it was invented not in Gliwice, not in Gliwice, by a man who was born here. This is the truth. But he was living here only for 6 years. Then he went with his parents to Breslau, nowadays Wrocław, and then to study somewhere to Germany. And then when he was adult, bought Bayersdorf factory, and over there in 1911, he invented this most famous cream all over the world. His name is Oskar Troplowicz, because we forgot to mention about it. This family is very famous here because of him. But his grandparents were here from the beginning of 19th century. They had a wine shop here. They were quite rich, and they are buried. This is also a very interesting story for us to how we are telling the history of the Jewish German from here. That Oskar grandparents are buried in our first Jewish cemetery in Gliwice, the old one, not the one we are next to. And his parents are buried in this Jewish cemetery in Breslau, nowadays Wrocław, and Oskar is in Hamburg. It shows us that the Jews, when they got money here, they usually wanted to, let's say, go to other place. I don't want to say the better place, but for sure other place. So they were going to Breslau, Berlin, Hamburg, other cities, maybe more comfortable. And the also important reason was that here was no university, nothing like that before the war.
I get to ask the most important question, and I always ask this type of question, and you already know what's coming.
Do you use Nivea?
I've heard it's better for men.
There's such a complicated history. There are lots of Polish people who don't necessarily want to think about the past. You're not Jewish. You're dedicating your life to telling the story of the Jews of Silesia. You have other projects that are linked to this to tell more and more of the story. You write books. You've created the most wonderful, wonderful exhibition. And the question is one word: why?
This is a common question. I started to deal with this history 15 years ago, and the reason was my family town, which called Będzin, which is like 40 kilometers from Gliwice, and it was always a Polish city. I mean, it's behind the pre-war border. And the reason is that, first of all, we discovered that there is a old prayer Jewish house with the paintings on the wall, and nobody wants to take care of it. So that was the main and first reason that we didn't want to allow to forget about this place and then forgot about the history. And the history is that then in my family town was 27,000 of Jews before the war. And it was a very huge and also old community, which makes me furious. I was like 27 in that time. Nobody told me about the history. And it was a shock. And I didn't want to let to be like that. And I started to know the history, and it was so unfair that none of museum, none of government want Jewish community don't want to take care of this shtibel, prayer house. And that's why, as a local people decided to rent, to take care. We treat it from the beginning as our own heritage, because I am repeating always that the Jews were not from the moon in my family town. And when we are going to Auschwitz, when I was a teenager, they told us that the Poles were dying there. And among them, there were some Jews, also from Będzin. Okay, but they were living in my family town for many ages. They were building Gliwice, Boyten, Katowice, Sosnowiec, Będzin, many other cities in Poland, of course. And we forgot about it. And that's why I couldn't let to do it, to forget. And the Jews from Będzin were the neighbors of my grandparents, because I am originally from many generations from Będzin. So these 5 years, you also ask about the balance, the Holocaust. We have to understand what happened, even if we will never understand. I mean, these 5 years made such a mess all over the world, and it destroyed the almost whole Jewish community in Europe, not only in Będzin or in Poland, but in Europe. I'm always questioning myself why. We'll never find the answer, probably, why it happened. But why we don't know the story, and why we are not involved in repeating to our children about the story, because there is one story, and the story is connecting very much with the Jewish citizens of many other places.
Where do people find out details about the museum and how to visit here? Is there a website?
museum.gliwice.pl, so you can find their information. We are open Tuesday till Sunday, and you can visit the museum, of course, the cemetery, which is just next to us.
On behalf of everybody listening to this, because you will have made people cry and really entered people's hearts, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and please come to Poland to find this unforgotten but still discovering history of the Jews from here.
Silesia Fact File. The main airport for Silesia region is Katowice International Airport. There are direct flights to Katowice from Tel Aviv with Wizz Air. You can connect to the city from Abu Dhabi and many cities across Europe, including London, Rome, Athens, Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Barcelona and Dublin. Katowice is 75 minutes from Kraków-Belice International Airport by road. It's a 35-minute taxi ride from Katowice Airport to the city centre, and 45 minutes by public transport. There are also buses and a train service to the tourist areas of the region. You can reach the city of Cieszyn in about 1 hour and 30 minutes, and the town of Ustron in 1 hour and 45 minutes. Recommended hotels in the region include: in Katowice, the Best Western Mariaki Hotel, the Vienna House, the Diamant Plaza Hotel, and the Mercure Katowice Centrum. The Novotel is located closer to the popular culture zone. In Zabrze, home of the Guido coal mine, there is the Park Hotel Diamant. Cieszyn has some small hotels, including the Liburnia Hotel and the Mercure Cieszyn. In the spa town of Ustron, there is the Uzdrowisko Ustron and the Spa and Wellness Hotel Diamant. In the neighbouring spa villages of Koniakov and Istebna, there is the spa resort of Złoty Gron and Srebrny Buchnik. $1 will buy you 3.9 Polish zloty. The Silesia region has a continental climate. It is warm in the summer and cold in the winter. Silesia typically receives about 85 millilitres, 3.3 inches of rain annually. The best time to visit the region is from mid-May to mid-September. In the higher locations of Ustron, Koniakov and Istebna, it snows in the winter months and you can ski here from December to March. The most popular regional dishes in Silesia are Rolada Slaska, Kluski and Modro Kapusta, which is Silesian beef roulade with Silesian dumplings and red cabbage. Vodźionka, a bread soup, Hekele, herring salad, and in the Beskidi Mountains, Kapuśnika, which is a sour cabbage soup. Other traditional products in Silesia are Krupnioki Slaski, which is a Silesian blood sausage, and Zimlok, which is a bun sausage. In the Beskidi Mountains there are cheeses like Osipek, Brynza, Wołowska and Buns.
Piotr Fuglewicz is our tour guide. We are in Katowice. We left our hotel behind. We took a quick drive with our lovely driver Agnes, and we've come to a fascinating area which reminds me of a couple of places that Mark and I know from the UK, one called Bourneville and one called Port Sunlight, which were places where workers in large corporations, say 100 years ago, they lived in places that were built by the owners of those companies. And we're in something very similar. Piotr, tell us about where we are now.
We are in Nikiszowiec, which is the name of the city town of Kopalnia Gisze. It was built for the coal mine. Kopalnia is coal mine. It started in 1907 and they finished the church, which was the last building here, in 1922. In the meantime, place changed the state because it was German until 1918. Then it was nobody's for 4 years because there was dispute over to which country should it belong. And at last, from 1922, it became Polish.
How long has this been a village for the workers, and is the coal mine still working?
Coal mine closed in 2020. It was reducing its activity since 1990. At that time, in 1990, there were only coal miners living here because all the town belonged to the coal mine and they let coal miners only live in those flats. By the way, coal miners were paying 10% of their salary for 60 square meter place, which was very good proportion, I believe.
So there are 1,000 apartments here. At the time you were telling us there were about 7,000 people, so 7 people per 60 square metres, which is pretty squished, in fact very squished by today's standards. What about today? It looks like it's totally lived in. There are cars around, there are people walking around, there are the garbage areas, there are parks for the kids.
Yes, the people are still living here. What more, like 60 or 70% of them are living in the 5th or 6th generation because this job of coal miner was continued in families. It was very good job. Well, you could pay with your life because the rate of death in work was very high. On the other hand, conditions, and you said 7 is quite much for today, but at that time it was very good because there was current water, there were toilets, there were electricity, so conditions were much, much better than in normal villages where even more people could live in smaller space. So now people are living here. 30% of those flats were sold because, as I told you, when they started to discontinue coal mine, the coal mines sold flats very cheaply to workers living there, and some of them left, some of them stayed. More or less 30% are new people. Those new people are high educated. They are artists, they are professors. There is nice mix of very good local Silesian tradition and new people who are in love in the area and in the local culture. They are not trying to change it, to make whatever Saint-Germain of it, but to keep it like it was, yet clean and modern.
Everything looks quite uniform here. It's definitely of an age, but every window is white. Every window ledge is a brighter red than the bricks. Is there a story behind the colour?
This place was very dirty. There is coal mine on the other side of the street. So ladies here were crazy about cleanness. They needed to have at least their homes clean. Those windows were surrounded by brick. Those bricks were getting dirty and they could not clean them. But when they painted with this red paint, which by the way was delivered by the coal mine in order to paint the floor in the kitchen, so it was maybe remain of it, and they painted, and then it was just enough to wipe it and it was clean. So 1 or 2 or 3 started, and in 1 or 2 or 3 years everybody was using this method because it was very good for cleanness.
For people visiting this area, there's something to look out for. And you pointed out, Piotr, to us the first 2. They look almost like little cows, hidden away. One was just below a window of a home. One is under a street plan of the area. And you said they are beboks. Yeah. What on earth is a bebok?
Bebok.
You see, I don't listen.
I know, but bebok, we pronounced it bebok. Bebok is a creature from the local legends, Silesian legends. It appears also in some other areas of Poland, but under the other name. Bebok in the legend was to keep kids behave. If you will not behave, Bebok will come and grab you, or do not enter this room because there is a Bebok inside. And Beboks were danger and very ugly, and everybody was frightened of Beboks. And the painter, Grzegorz Chudy, who is living here, one of those newcomers, painted such a bebok for his daughter. And daughter said, "Dad, beboks are good. Please paint me a good bebok." And he painted bebok which was looking friendly. There is a bebok frenzy here in Katowice. There is 61 beboks. Every bebok has to be loved and has to have his sense. There is a story behind every bebok.
Piotr, you took us from Nikiszowiec to a site of a former coal mine in the centre of Katowice, but it's been reborn. What has it been reborn as?
I was thinking about showing you 2 poles of the city, first of which is this old district, very interesting from the tourist way, and the other is today's Katowice, which builded very important culture center at the territory of the coal mine, which was in the very center of the town. Coal mine name was Katowice, like the city, and now we have the Silesian Museum. We have seat of the National Orchestra of Polish Radio, and we also have a huge Congress Center. All of that appeared in last 10-15 years and changed the face of the city dramatically. It was the workers' city. Now it is a city of culture, of new technology, of young people, and of new ideas. This year we are the city of science, which means every week there are several seminars, conferences, workshops happening in the city.
To move from industrial coal-producing city to a city of culture, of modern technology, it must take education. Is there a large amount of university education available in Katowice?
Yes, we do have 7 state universities, what means formal universities. We also have number of academias. It is also educational body, but not state-owned. Altogether, we have more than 40,000 students learning medicine, fine art, music, engineering, everything. So we have good mix of nice educated people.
Our food has arrived, but before we tuck in one other issue that I'd like to talk to you about, most Jewish people and anybody interested in Israel, if you talk to them about the founding moment of Zionism in an official capacity, they think about the first Zionist conference.
Yeah.
But exactly 140 years ago, something else happened here in Katowice.
It was the Katowice conference from 1884, as you said exactly. It was attended mainly by Jews from Russia. It was first biggest city next to the boundary, but also people from Austria, France, I believe, and other states came. And after discussion, they invented the core of Zionism. I mean, it was not formulated maybe like it was later in Vienna and other places, but the very cornerstone was here in Katowice.
As David mentioned, our food has arrived. We're on Mariachi Street. We're in a restaurant called Katowice, which means cactus, so we won't delay you any longer. Piotr, thank you very much for guiding us around Katowice.
To talk the latest news in Israel, the Jewish world, and everything in between.
This is the J-Post Podcast. I'm Tamar Uriel-Beery, Deputy Editor-in-Chief of the Jerusalem Post.
And I'm Tzvika Klein, Editor-in-Chief of the Jerusalem Post.
And I'm Sarah Ben-Nun, Night Editor at the Jerusalem Post. Join us as we bring some of the most impactful voices to bring you into what it means to be Jewish, to be Israeli today.
Every week, we bring you with us into the newsroom in every sense.
Stop being so dramatic. This is just our coffee break.
You can find us every Thursday on jpost.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We'll see you there.
Yalla, bye.
Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, David. You and I are dressed for different climates.
I'm brave. Well, I'm also from the north of England and you're from the south. So you're in a hoodie and trousers and you've got on your hat.
In the north, did you have windows that weren't clean? Because if you look outside, it's a little bit rainy and we're going somewhere high, I think.
I'm hoping that we're going to go above the clouds, but the last time we tried to do this, which was in Zakopane, also in Poland, we failed miserably, and at the top of the mountains, we couldn't see anything.
And heights, that's one of your favourite things, isn't it? Look out that window, David.
We're going to be dangling our feet above the ground.
We are indeed. Shall we ask somebody about where we are exactly?
Hello, my name is Anna Wnętrzak and I want to welcome you in Ustroń, in cable car Chantoria.
Where is Ustroń, first of all?
In Polish region, Beskidy, and it's very beautiful city and we are very happy to welcome you here.
How many people live around here?
About 15,000.
As we've been driving along, we've seen what look like holiday homes, hotels along the way, restaurants. It seems like it's a real tourist area. Is it predominantly for winter or for summer?
We have guests all year and we have very much attraction here in Ustroń. And you can spend time on mountain or about the river or go to the bike also. So everyone could find something for himself.
Assuming David and I make it to the top of the mountain, what's there to see at the top of the mountain?
Oh, of course, beautiful view to the Beskidy. You can go up about Chantoria Wielka. It's about 995 meters because the cable car station is about 851 meters and then you can go up. When it's good weather, of course, you can rest on our beach because we have here beach. We have also attraction for children when you can ride about 700 meters on the special toboggan.
How many people visit your attractions?
About 400,000 by the year.
They're mainly Polish people?
No, not only. We have guests from all over the world. Our neighbors, just like Czech Republic, Slovakia, and all over the world.
Anna, thank you very much indeed. We're looking forward to spending our morning with you.
Thank you very much and have a nice day.
The hills are alive with the sound of music. Sha-la-la-la. For 1,000 meters.
Well, 850 to be precise.
So according to Mark, we are the same height as the world's tallest building, except we're in nature.
The Burj Khalifa is around 2,600 feet, which is exactly where we are at the moment.
Except we're not in Dubai. We are in a cloud.
Yes, the weather certainly isn't like Dubai. Apparently in Dubai today it's 41 degrees and hot and sunny.
We are drenched from head to toe. The very kind lady Anna, whom you heard a few moments ago, just as we were leaving the warmth and dryness of base camp, to Magda, Mark and myself, gave us each a poncho.
We like Anna because she had the sense not to come up here in the rain. She clearly knew what was about to happen.
You like her or you hate her?
No, I like her. Imagine just getting off a log flume. That's kind of what we've just done.
Absolutely, stunningly brilliant. My God, there's another human being that actually just came up on the lift. He must work here.
That's the rubbish bin. It's shaped like a bear. The visibility is so poor. We cannot see anything. But on the way up, we saw beautiful mountains, lovely tall trees. To about 600 feet in this weather, it was beautiful.
The truth is, we've probably laughed more over the last 5-10 minutes of the journey than we have in a long, long time. First of all, Magda is a giggly lady, and very funny watching her because she needed windshield wipers on her glasses, and all that we can see of her face is her smile and the glasses, and the rest is covered head to toe.
These Macs have been brilliant. They have kept my top half dry. One thing when I go on Dragon's Den, or whatever it's called in America, Shark Tank, and come up with my new invention, is going to be a Mac that goes all the way to your feet, because it has literally dripped off my top half onto my legs. So I now have very wet trousers.
But if you come here on a sunny day, and don't forget, we just had bad luck because yesterday and the day before were boilingly hot, and in fact I actually prefer it this way. But the views from up here are absolutely stunning, so we're told. There's an observation deck that you can walk to. There are higher points. There's another 300 feet or so on top of where we are now to the top of the mountain. And this is just a beautiful, beautiful resort, and we're just resorting to humour because we can't see any of it.
Yes, it's about a 30-minute walk from the deck, from the stair lift to the top of the mountain. So add another hour if you want to do that. At 700 metres, we did pass the toboggan. Funnily enough, there was no one on it because I think you could slide down the toboggan track without any equipment.
It's a lot of fun. It really looks like it's a fantastic place. It's only about an hour and a half out of Katowice, another direction from the places that we were headed yesterday. And we're going to take you now around the other parts of this region that the wonderful Magda has agreed to take us to.
I'm surrounded by octopuses, mushrooms, stingrays, jellyfish, and I'm about to hit my balls into a snail.
Just the experience of watching two robot arms making your cocktail for you.
I've got this strapping thing on and a very small piece of metal that is going to hold my body on a rope.
And we were fighting as snow shifters
against yetis. So we're both in very nice floral dresses.
You're listening to the Jerusalem Post podcast travel edition with Mark Gordon and David Harris.
David?
Marky.
Are you feeling a little ill?
Always.
There's a faint aroma in the air.
Meh.
Yes, I saw a couple of goats earlier, and then I saw a lot of children who have now been sent away from me. And there's lots of wool here and milk. It's a very strange place.
We're in a village atop a mountain. It's called Koniakov, and we're in a shepherd's farm.
Oh, do we get to herd sheep?
I think the sheep are purely here for display. Where we are now is very much aimed at tourists, and it's trying to show the types of activities that were, and in some cases still are, carried out in a small rural Polish area.
There seems to be a very nervous lady there who's about to demonstrate something to us.
In front of us there's a large amount of heated milk, and we are surrounded by wool in various stages of preparation for garment making.
We're going to knit some cheese.
We have to start right now because she's going to make the cheese. The cheese will be made from 100% sheep's milk. Into this milk we had to add some podpuszczka in Polish. It's a kind of a bacteria that will make the milk turn into cheese. Now the bacteria you can buy online, but in the past it was made from calf stomach. The farmers dried the stomach, and then when it was very, very dry, they added into this sheep's milk, and that's how the cheese was made.
Is it still made from calf stomach, or is it a different chemical now?
We don't use the calf stomach anymore because we don't have that many calves. It has to be covered, and it has to stay like this for 15 minutes, something like this. There are 1,200 sheep and only 7 shepherds, so they have a lot of work. To be a shepherd, you have to love your job. It's not only a job, it's a passion, because it needs a lot of sacrifice and it's very time consuming. All sheep are milked by hand. They don't use any machinery.
As Mark and I travel around Poland, we feel, even though we've been here many times now, that our linguistic skills are getting worse and worse and going downhill. And as a result, we quite often get our guests on the podcast to introduce themselves. And in Lucy's case, she's going to tell us her name because there is no way on earth Mark or I could ever say your name.
Lucyna Ligocka-Kochut.
Tell us where we are and a little bit of the story of this beautiful place.
We are in Koniaków, in a very small village in the Beskidian Mountains, where tradition is a crocheting tradition. It's very specific technique, and our ladies crocheting laces, tablecloths, coifs, dresses in traditional way here in this small village. And we are now in a museum, show how it makes and show a lot of laces, very nice exhibition presented what we are doing and how it grew and how it was at the beginning.
Who makes all these wonderful lace patterns, designs, dresses, clothes?
Here in Koniaków live over 700 ladies who are an artist because they are making laces in their home, and the youngest one is 5 years old and the oldest one is 95. She imagined a lot of floral motifs inspired by nature and our mountains. They make a lace with floral motifs, with stars, with a very thin thread. Our ladies live in a very traditional way. They are making laces in their homes, in their houses.
You're in the Guinness Book of World Records. You're on the cover of Vogue magazine. How do you achieve that? After all, we're in a very small village, isolated, high up in the mountains. This particular place, which is your own home, which is now this wonderful museum with all these photographs and videos and, of course, lace everywhere, is a small area. Why is it that you have become so famous internationally?
Because Koniaków and our laces are very unique. Our laces very specific with this thread and pattern like we make, and all the pattern composition artists imagine themselves. So that makes it unique.
Anybody famous ever worn Koniakowska lace?
Our laces were like Britney Spears, Arabian princess, some actors, Queen Elizabeth II, Rei Kawakubo, very famous fashion designer from Japan. She sewed a beautiful wedding coat. Giorgio Armani ordered some wedding dress as well. Still, a lot of famous people like actors around the world call to us and order some dresses.
My mother went around Europe looking at lace, buying lace, would go to villages in Greece or Cyprus. She never came to Poland and would always give it as gifts. A tablecloth, a doily centerpiece on the table. We at home have a couple of lace tablecloths. When my daughter, who's interested in interior design and is 24 years old, sees the tablecloths, she says, "We're not using those, they're old-fashioned." How do you make lace appeal to people from the 21st century?
Because we believe in this tradition and we still think it's so beautiful. It's a little my idea and my creation, because when I started work with lace, I imagined that we have to be recognized around the world, and I started to imagine big project like biggest Koniakowska lace in the world, and I started to travel with this exhibition around the world, and after we get order from Japanese designer, and finally we show on Paris Fashion Week. When we go to Dubai, I knew that we have to present very modern laces, like not only tablecloths, like you said, but beautiful dresses, beautiful dream catcher, which are so popular today. The form is modern, but the work is still tradition.
I think my daughter would absolutely love to wear the dress that you're wearing. Now you've got a surprise for us, because behind us there is a cupboard. What is inside?
Inside are thongs. One woman imagined thong, and people started to come to Koniaków and want to buy thongs, and a lot of television started to interesting in this form of our laces. Now, of course, everything changed, and we make another things. We have Guinness record and a lot of good project and a lot of good exhibition.
How do people visit the centre, and where can they buy Koniaków lace?
We have a website, of course. We have some fan page in Facebook and Instagram.
If you're looking for that website of this lace centre, it's very simple. It's the Koniaków Lace Centre. Koniaków spelled Konikow. Lucy, thank you for introducing us to the world of your lace things and lace thongs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, and I invite everybody to Koniaków. Visit us. We are waiting for you. See you.
Thing a thong, thing it loud.
I'll take the high road and you'll take the low road, and I'll be in Poland before you.
You're listening to the Jerusalem Post podcast, brought to you from the Czech Republic.
And from Poland.
No, the Czech Republic.
This could go on all day. We have got somebody to adjudicate, who is our wonderful tour guide. We never, ever, ever successfully pronounce Polish names. Your name, please.
Anna Syrokosz.
It's not too bad, Syrokosz. Who is correct? Which country are we in right now? And you are actually breaking the rules.
Yes, you are in Poland, he's in Czech Republic, I'm in both at the same time.
We're going to talk in a minute about the city that is your home. But first, just explain exactly where we are.
We are on the bridge that is between Poland and Czech Republic, and we are standing really at the middle of the bridge, so we can really see where the border goes.
We're standing on a beautiful river. Can you just describe a little bit the topography, the geography of this area?
The river is Olza River. It takes origin in Beskid Mountains, and it is about 100 kilometers long, and it passes by Cieszyn. At the moment, this is a border river, partially, as we are here right now on the border, and it's passed by Cieszyn, and it's a division between Cieszyn and Czeski Cieszyn.
Was the whole city built at the same time as one city?
The city was created in medieval times, and it was growing on the hillside that right now is Polish side. It started to grow on the other side in 19th century. It's because there was a flat area, so the reason to develop there was that the tram line could pass there, and also it was a good place to develop industry. So just about 150 years ago, it started to be on the other side of the river.
A practical question. Do I need a passport to cross the bridge? And can I spend my zloty in the Czech side of Cieszyn?
Oh, you don't need a passport. You can go back and forth without it as many times as you want to. There is different currency on the Czech side. There is Czech crown, but many places accept Polish zloty. As nowadays we are in European Union, some places also accept euros.
We'll talk about the Polish side, which is your side, in a minute, I promise. How are relations between the two sides? You're both in the European Union now.
Last 20 years, we are putting a lot of efforts to reunite the city. We have two different councils, so there is a Polish City Council and Czech City Council, but we are trying to make a lot of projects together to again have the feeling that we are in one city.
One thing we noticed was on the 20 zloty note, Cieszyn is featured. Can you tell us what that is and what else there is to see in the city?
There is a lot of things to see in the city. The note that you mentioned, on the 20 zloty, there is a medieval church, we call it Rotunda. This is the church that was built between 10th and 11th century. It's one of the oldest buildings in Poland. It's very unique and is on the castle hill that is also very unique and nice for tourism. Nearby there is 14th century medieval tower that you can climb to the top and have a nice view. There is an urban medieval space in Cieszyn and a lot of historical monuments. Cieszyn was not destroyed during the Second World War.
Let's go and check out the rest of the town. Short time ago, when we arrived in this city, we were taken up a fairly steep hill, bumpy road to a quiet neighbourhood. To our left, there was a building, red brick, but not looking in the best condition. We parked a little bit beyond there and then started walking.
But what we did see was a few Stars of David, a few Magen Davids on either side of the road, and they are the two Jewish cemeteries of the city. Anna, can you tell us something of the history of those cemeteries?
There are two cemeteries, old and new. The new was created in 20th century because the old one was not enough anymore. But the old one is more beautiful in my opinion. It has a very unique spirit. It was created in 17th century, so for 3 centuries Jewish people were buried there. There is a lot of matzevas that are carved in sandstone that are still there, and no one is taking care of this place, but the nature with the history is part of this place.
What we could see that a large amount of the matzevot, the gravestones, were covered in ivy to protect them from the elements, although the ivy will do its own damage. It led to this beautiful landscape in the shape of gravestones. There was ivy, and there was one particular gravestone that was next to a tree, and it must have been there 200-300 years. The tree has expanded year by year, and now half of the gravestone is inside the tree. Unique.
In Judaism and, of course, in Christianity, we talk about sort of the ashes to ashes going back to the ground, and that's like the ultimate example of the whole of nature swallowing up somebody and bringing their life back into the earth. The modern cemetery, however, does have people caring for it, even though people haven't been buried there for a long time.
Yes, that's true. We have an association who is taking care of that place and putting matzevas back standing. All of this is volunteer work.
There are no Jews in this area today, so we're talking about just regular members of the community, Poles, who are helping out.
These are just citizens of the city for whom this history is important.
Were there many Jews in the city? Anybody we would have heard of? What happened to the Jewish community here?
Jewish people started to live here in the 17th century. With the time, this population would grow. So the biggest population was in 19th century, was up to 20% of the citizens. About 2,000 Jews would live here, more than 2,000. So this was quite a big population. They even had representation in the city council. One of the known Jewish people that was born in Cieszyn is Richard Pipes, who emigrated to America and was the advisor of the president in the United States. Why the Jewish community is not here anymore? It's as everywhere in this part of Europe. Well, the Second War was the end of Jewish community here.
Is there anything else of a Jewish nature before we move on to talking about the city today?
There used to be a synagogue. We have right now just the place after the synagogue. It was only a thing that was destroyed during the war. Next to it, on the building, there is a painting of Irena Sandler, who was saving Jewish kids during the war. And there is one thing that is on the other side of the river, that is on the Czech side. There is the old house of prayer, which was not destroyed because it was between other buildings. So this was the only Jewish building that was not destroyed destroyed during the Second War.
We're sitting in the office of the headquarters of the Silesian region. We're in a beautiful room with, is it an original fresco all the way around?
Yes. It was discovered in the 20th century and was renovated. The painting was supposed to show the landscape of the city. This is the place where the last ruler of Cieszyn, who was from the Piast family, she lived here. And from the windows you have the view of the very beautiful main square.
So the city's roots are pretty old, more than 1,000 years, but the city where people really lived, medieval, but nothing really left. I mean, there was a church that you showed us near the Jewish cemeteries, and you said that is an old church, and recently historic paintings were found under other paintings that had covered over them. But what else is there to suggest that this is an old town?
First of all, the unique atmosphere in the city is because we still have medieval urban structure. The buildings would change with the time, but the structure of the streets is medieval. That's why they are so narrow. There is a lot of nice corners. The city square was created in 1496. At the beginning, there was the wooden structure around it, and since 1552, there was a law: all the houses need to have stone structure on the basic floor. As with the history, many buildings were built. Some were rebuilt, so some were destroyed by the fire or the war. The time when Cieszyn developed a lot is 19th century, when a lot of buildings were renovated or being built. And this is from that time we can see a lot of very nice historical buildings.
We're here obviously looking at the Upper Silesian region and providing information for tourists coming to the region. Is there plenty of places to stay in the region if people want to come and visit?
You can stay in Cieszyn, or you can stay also in cities nearby us. For instance, you can stay in Ustroń on Wisła if you want to go hiking, and you can also come to visit Cieszyn, for instance, for the weekend.
60 seconds. What should people see when they come to this city?
They need to see Głęboka Street, the main square, the Castle Hill. They should climb the medieval tower, and they should take a picture on the bridge, which is between Poland and Czech Republic.
So what, 25 seconds left? No, I'm kidding. Is there a website for more information about Cieszyn?
Visit cieszyn.com.
As easy as that. Anna, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's been rather good, surprisingly good.
Why surprising?
I don't know. I always had this image of Katowice from the past, of a big steel town, you know, in the industrial past of Poland and the change from communism to capitalism. Katowice just gave me that image of an old industrial town, kind of like where we came from.
Yeah, from the north of England. They compare it a lot with Łódź further north in Poland. A lot of industrial towns, industrial areas need to reinvent themselves, and that's something that Katowice and its environs has done and is in the process of doing. But beyond this city, the area of Upper Silesia is quite beautiful.
It's definitely a fun place to spend 2 or 3 days in. We're here in Katowice as our base. We're currently sitting in the breakfast room of our hotel, the Best Western Mariaki, which is also a brewery as well. So we're sitting in the brewery room, surrounded by lovely bricks, big high ceilings. It's been a nice hotel to base ourselves in.
Talking of warm welcomes and so on, we should say a couple of thank yous. Magda, our phenomenal carer.
Yes, and we do need caring at our age.
She made sure everything worked fine. And something unusual, normally when we have a driver who is with us for a few days, they sit in the car, they keep themselves to themselves and don't want to learn about all the experiences that we had. On this occasion, it was a bit different.
I think they employed her as a minder to keep us away from causing trouble because they've heard what we're like. But no, Agnes, our driver, has been great and probably also one of the fastest drivers I've ever had the privilege of sitting behind.
Most important of all is our long-time friend from the Polish tourist organisation, Dorota Zadrożna, who bases herself in Tel Aviv. She loves the city and the country so much that she's there permanently and is always happy to dispatch us to a new corner of Poland, and there are many to discover.
A big thank you as well to all the guides that have taken us around the wonderful places, coal mines, cheese making, lace, the beautiful town of Cieszyn, up mountains, although she never came with us because she saw the weather. And I'm not bitter about that in any way.
Folks, please follow, please like, please share, please tell your friends, please comment, please give us a 5-star review at markdavidpod, markdavidpod@gmail.com.
Is it question time?
It's answer time.
Do you remember the question? Because I think we recorded it on the way here.
It seems like a long time ago because we've crammed so much into this beautiful area in a very short space of time.
And we crammed quite a bit of vodka into ourselves on the way here. From memory, and forgive me if I get this slightly wrong, the question was about the former name of Katowice. During the communist era, they briefly changed the name of Katowice. What was it?
It was Katowice under the Germans.
There was an ice skater called Katarinavic, but I don't think they changed it to that.
This is not the answer you're looking for.
This is not the droid you were looking for. The answer was Stalingrad. Very original.
Grad, not grad.
Yes. Grad was in Russia or the Soviet Union. Stalingrad.
Folks, we hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Do reach out to us and let us know if there's a particular destination that you would like us to go to. Be polite. Or alternatively, if you want to bring us to your pod of the world, do let us know at markdavidpod, markdavidpod@gmail.com.
We work for vodka only.
Folks, have a lovely, lovely couple of weeks, and we'll see you in a fortnight, as they say in the UK.
Bye-bye.
Cheerio.